Welcome back to Just Keep Parenting, everybody. Hoping you've had a good week of parenting. If you haven't, watch the video and just remind yourself of what's important. Remind yourself of you're a good parent, right? And we just need lots of reminders in our life to remember this is about the kids, right? So today I'm going to give you another reminder. We're still working on Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline by Dr. Becky Bailey. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is helping our child pay attention to us, right? We've been talking about assertiveness rather than being aggressive, rather than being passive. And so today we're going to be talking about how to help our children pay attention to us, right? Because that's kind of problematic when they don't pay attention, right? And that ticks us off, that makes us angry. We become aggressive because of that, right? And so as we look at this, one of the things that that Dr. Bailey talks about is the first step in being more assertive is to get their attention, right? She talks about proximity, right? How close you are to a child, and that will help. There's a story that's in the book that I'd like to read because I think it is a good example of what we feel every day working with children. Megan was a spacey child who was often lost in play and fantasy. Initially, her mother, Catherine, feared that Megan had a hearing problem, but doctors said the girl's ears were just fine. Still, Catherine regularly struggled to get her daughter's attention. Speaking or calling to Megan from across a room never worked, so she would crouch down close to Megan and say things like, "Look at me. Mom has something to say. Megan, are you listening?" Catherine might clap her hands in an effort to rouse some sign of recognition from Megan. Often, Catherine would end up yelling out of utter frustration, "Megan, are you deaf?" We've been there. We've done that. Yeah. Catherine's sister Cindy once watched an interaction like this with some amusement. Cindy's laughter made Catherine so angry that she said, "If you can do better, go right ahead." Cindy walked over to Megan, who was busily playing, and got down at the girl's eye level. With her face about 6 inches from Megan's face, Cindy waited for Megan to notice her. When Megan looked up and made eye contact with her aunt, Cindy said, "There you are." With a firm, quiet voice, she stated Megan's name, touched her shoulder gently, and said, "Pick up these puzzles and put them in the box." As she spoke, Cindy pointed to the pieces and then to the box. Her gestures reinforced her verbal command. Megan began picking up the puzzle pieces. Catherine, who had been watching, sighed and observed, "It's easy for you. You're not her mother." It's true. It's easier to deal with other people's children, isn't it? Even so, an assertive manner improves your chances of being heard, even if you are the parent, right? And so we've kind of all been there, maybe on both sides, right? The parents are always grateful. They're like, "I just hope they are better for you than they are for me at home." Of course they are, right? Because I'm not their parent at the lab school. Right. And so when we send our kids over to people's houses, sometimes it's that, "Oh, I wonder what they're going to say. I wonder what they're going to do." And quite often they're quite well behaved. Right. Because usually it's just easier. It's always easier to parent. It's always easier to do something with other people's children. Right. So one of the things that it talks about in the book, right, that we use here in the lab school, excuse me, is to help the children understand that I'm trying to be assertive, right? So as you saw in this scenario, she knelt down to the aisles to the children's eye level and made direct contact. And I see this happen again and again in the lab school when the teachers finally get to that point when they're like, "Stop running. Can you stop running, please? Oh, you're making me nervous," right? It's so passive, right? But when they cross that threshold and they're like, folks, they get down on the child's level, they look in their eyes and they said, "This is not safe. This is what you can do. You can go play over here at this center and do this. You can go play at this center. You can do this. Which one are you going to do? Because this isn't safe. Running around isn't safe." right? So she just stated it, right? And I love it when they make that progress. And I hope they continue that progress, because sometimes when we're just, as parents, as people who care for children, we're busy, right? And so we kind of say things flippantly and hope that they listen, right? But they're busy too, right? In their brain, they're busy. So we kneel down, get in their eye, get in their face, so to speak, 6 inches away. When the child looks at us, right, and that's the hardest thing for us to do, is to wait. But if we sit there 4 or 5 seconds, they usually come to. And then we say, oh, hi, Dory, there you are, right? Or just say the child's name, hi, Dory, right? And a lot of times I just ask the teachers to just touch them gently on their shoulder, on their back, on their arm, right? So that there again, you've made contact with them, right? And it kind of brings them out of that fantasy or that spacey part of their brain that they might be in. Tell the child what you want, right? It's not a question. Can you pick up these toys? No, right? It's like, no, these toys need to be picked up, sweetie. They need to be picked up and put in the box, right? Match your words with supporting gestures, right? So I'm showing them where they need to be picked up. I'm showing them which center they can go to, right? And then praise and encourage your child when they comply with the command. Way to go, kiss your brain. You listened. Thank you for doing that, right? Because we all want that we want somebody to notice that we did something good, right? Especially children who are just trying to figure that out. And we're trying to help them understand that there's an intrinsic piece and not just that extrinsic piece, right? So as we go ahead and give them that extrinsic piece for complying, and then we move on, right? The other thing that she talks about in this chapter is that we engage as many senses as we can, right? So we used vision, right? We had eye contact with the child and we gave gestures. We used hearing, we said their name, and we stated the expectations, and we used touch. So we touched their shoulder or their back or their arm, right? And so one of the things that I think that we forget as people who work with children, whether it's caregivers or parents, is that teaching our children to meet our expectations is no different than teaching them to read. Let me say that again. Teaching our children to meet our expectations is no different than teaching them to read, right? But we spend so many hours and we spend so much time and we spend so much energy on teaching them how to read, but we don't necessarily spend that same energy as we teach them how to meet our expectations. We just expect it, but they don't know how to do that, right? So the more senses that we engage as we help the child to read, right, the more likely it is that they'll become an adept reader. And that's the same thing with anything social, with anything emotional with our children. If we can involve a lot of senses, if we take the time to teach them and not just get angry because they're not listening to us, right? Even this week, I had a past student teacher send me a book, and she said, I know this is kind of toddlerish, but I think it'll be so good in the lab school because it's all about teaching them how to listen. We just think that it's osmosis. They're just going to grow up and they're going to learn how to listen. Not so, right? They have to be taught, what does it look like? What does it sound like? So anyway, I'm pretty excited about this one this week, that we just have to remember, right, that we have to teach them how to pay attention. It's not something that they grow up with. It's not something that they come out of the womb with. Right? So as you think about that this week, remember, right? This is a teaching moment. They don't know how to do this yet. And work through it. You'll be assertive. Keep on parenting, everybody. We'll talk to you later.